Hello everyone, Kurt Klein here with Hallmark University, teaching out of Don Yacobucci's Marketing Management 5th edition for BUS5332, same name, Marketing Management. We are in Chapter 2, Customer Behavior. So today we're going to focus on one of the 5 C's, Customer Behavior, and that is the first part of our marketing framework. So discussion question number 1. Describe the process you used when you decided which college to attend. Good topic, right? So the science of consumer behavior. There are known reliable patterns that comprise consumer behavior, including the phases consumers go through when making a purchase, the different kinds of purchases that consumers make, how consumers sense and perceive, become motivated, form attitudes, and make decisions. The cultural differences that influence consumers. So when we think about that discussion question, describe the process you used when you decided which college to attend. How much did it cost? How far away from home? Was that a plus or minus? For me, it was a plus. How far can I get away from home, right? And for some, depending on where you live, is it online? Can I get to it from a Wi-Fi connection? Do I have to go to class? Do I have to wake up at 8 a.m. or can I just log on somewhere, right? Lots of thought processes go behind which college you chose. So that's the known reliable patterns that comprise consumer behavior that we just talked about. The purchase process. When we think about the purchase process, what we notice is there's the pre-purchase. You identify a need or a want. Well, I need a better job. I want to get further in life. I think I'm going to go after a college degree. Not always a necessity, but it opens up a lot of different doors, right? So you search possible solutions. Will it be the University of Texas? Will it be St. Mary's? Excuse me. Will it be Hallmark University? That sort of solution set. Build your consideration set. That's your pre-purchase. So here's my list, here's my criteria, this is what I'm going to focus on. Now we have the purchase. You narrow your consideration set down and decide on which retail channel to go to. And then there's the post-purchase. How satisfied are you? Is there a likelihood to repeat? Will you be generating word of mouth on their behalf just because you had a great experience? So when we think about that, customers recognize a need or desire. Some are heavily marketer influenced, some are not. Having trendy clothes versus needing to eat. Me personally, I'm an eating type person, so the trendy clothes thing, that's out, right? Customers search and evaluate products that address their need. You conduct an online search, you do a pros and cons list, you ask friends, family, etc. Customers create a consideration set, so all brands considered as candidates for purchase, right? And then let's take a look at discussion question number 2. What need or desire drove you to consider purchasing college? Because when you think about it, somebody's paying for it. It may not be you, may be the government, may be mom and dad. It might be you, it might be a loan company. How did you search for information? Which colleges were in your consideration set? What criteria did you utilize to form this set? When I was thinking of colleges, when I was working on my bachelor's, I lived in Illinois and Texas. Was I going to go to the U of I? Was I going to go to UT? Who was going to accept me as out-of-state resident? Who was going to accept me as in-state resident? Was it a private school? Was it a public school? My mom was so excited. She was like, honey, you should go to SMU. And I was like, have you seen the price tag? Texas Tech, the University of North Texas, and Hallmark University all won out. Purchase phase. Customers narrow the consideration set. Customer may delay the purchase. Customers may decide not to purchase, right? Customers decide on the retail channel. Will I go private, public, online, traditional, brick and mortar? Post-purchase phase. That's huge. Customer assesses the purchase and the purchase process. The customers determine the satisfaction. Were my socks knocked off or not? Did the customer get what he expected? And this kind of goes into customer satisfaction, customer service, right? So think about it. If you go to a fast food restaurant, you expect to go through the drive-through. It's going to be kind of a screwy process. You may or may not wait long. You don't expect your order to necessarily be 100%. And when you get home, you realize that sure enough, they left all the pickles off your sandwich and you have a Diet Coke versus a Coke. Are you terribly upset? Maybe, maybe not. If your expectations were low, your satisfaction might be met. Kind of scary, right? So think about that. Customer determines the satisfaction. Were the customer's expectations met? Customer level of satisfaction leads to repeat purchases. In the example I gave you, you might go somewhere else. Negative or positive word of mouth. Years and years and years ago, as a very young individual, I worked as a manager for a McDonald's. And what they told us from a customer perspective is it cost us, I don't know, it's $500 or $700 to acquire a customer, but it costs us 10 times that to win back an angry customer. And the word of mouth factor back then, they said one customer will tell 10 customers, those 10 will tell 10 and 10 and 10 and 10, and so on and so forth, up to about 1 million people. And all I could think is, wow, we messed up one cheeseburger, 1 million people knew. Yikes. We better not mess up that one cheeseburger, right? So negative or positive word of mouth. Product returns, etc. Was it easy? Was it fast? Was it necessary? If it wasn't necessary, remember in Chapter 1 we talked about having that good relationship, chances are it might not be necessary, right? So discussion question 3. Are you satisfied with your college decision? Why or why not? Could your level of satisfaction affect the college? If so, how? So when we think about that, are you satisfied with your college decision? Me personally, I like Texas Tech. I like the University of North Texas. Actually, I love the University of North Texas. I absolutely had a fantastic time at Hallmark University. It was my first time going back to school in 20 years to get my MBA. And what I found was, sure enough, I had a great time. This online experience was so cool. Although it did take me about an extra 40 hours a week because it was an accelerated 14-month program. So that was a little stressful, but still very satisfied, right? Could my level of satisfaction affect the college? Absolutely. I'm the first student to graduate from Hallmark University's MBA program. I'm very proud of that fact. I really enjoyed the professors that were above me, teaching me. I had a great time. Dr. G's top-notch. And I've told everybody that I have come into contact with, and that's quite a few folks, that have decided to work on their master's. And when they say they're going to work on an MBA, I tell them dollar for dollar, I don't think Hallmark can be beat. That's my particular thought process and my level of satisfaction. So who utilizes the purchase process? Business to consumer, we call that B2C, and business to business, B2B. Both utilize the buying process. The amount of time spent on a stage depends upon what is being bought. If it's a stick of gum, not a whole lot going on there. If it's a brand new pickup truck, might be a lot of thought process there. A business customer is an agent buying something on behalf of an organization, administrative assistants, operations departments, etc. I run my own company. I am the managing partner. My wife is the CEO. And when we make buying decisions, I'm shopping for durability, long-term capacity. I'm thinking about everything I would think about personally, but I'm thinking about it because it's not just my money, it's her money as well. I want to make a smart decision. I want a high five at the end of that purchase process, and I want to be able to save as much money and get as much as I can for whatever the exchange was, right? So a business customer is an agent buying something on behalf of an organization. Just because it's somebody else's money doesn't mean you can just squander it freely. It's going. All right, so resuming our lecture here, sensation and perception utilizes senses to convey information. Consumers have selective attention. They black out what is not relevant. Visual, colors can convey, right? Product characteristics, white for freshness, for toothpaste. Brand identity, Tiffany's, aqua blue. Meaning, affected by culture, right? So hearing can increase spending. Ergo, quick tempo music equals increased spending, conveys a brand. Another thing that you might want to think about is a lot of stores start playing Christmas music somewhere right around after Halloween, which seems odd that we'd just surpassed Thanksgiving, but sure enough, there it is. And we notice that there's an uptick in fourth quarter spending, right? So hearing can also convey a brand. Harley-Davidson's distinctive sound, specific jingles, right? Smell can get attention. Smelling the Cinnabon store, right? You walk into a mall, you can smell that store throughout the entire mall. Allow product sampling, perfume and magazines, things of that particular nature. Taste can distinguish one brand from another. The most famous is the Coke versus Pepsi, right? Caused Coke to create new Coke, and before you know it, their market share decreased, and they had to come back with classic Coke. And it was just the taste test. Touch can convey brand imagery, well-designed products compared to value-designed products, right? Ergonomics, clean lines, simplicity, beauty, and sensual experiences. So all of that kinesthetic or the touch can convey the imagery that you're looking for. Sensation and perception, again, subliminal advertising. An ad that is shown so quickly that it doesn't meet the threshold of liminal recognition has been debunked by research. So they say there's no such thing as subliminal advertising. Although there was inanimate horror in one of those, I think it was the Amityville horror movies. They had quick flashes, or The Exorcist, quick flashes of inanimate horror. So, I don't know, was it really a scary movie, or was it the subliminal? Research says that it's been debunked, but you just never know. So, sensation and perception continued. Mere exposure, repeated exposure to an ad brings familiarity and a positive feeling, right? Coca-Cola is huge for it at Christmas time with the polar bears. Who would have thought that polar bears would be here decades later with us? Perceptual fluency. Customers may pay the most attention to the content of a message. However, the colors, font, etc. make a brand impression as well. Everybody knows Coca-Cola's cursive writing, right? Learning, memory, and emotions. Sensory and perceptual impressions can become brand associations. Learning is the process by which associations get past the sensory and perception stages into short-term memory, and then with repetition and elaboration into long-term memory, classical and operant conditioning. So, Pavlov's dogs. Stage 1, a dog drools at the sight of food. Stage 2, a dog doesn't respond to a bell. Stage 3, ringing a bell while placing food in front of the dog elicits drool. Stage 4 occurs over time. A bell was rung in front of the dog, and that alone, without the food, elicits drool, right? So the Pavlovian response. A similar process can be used in advertising and jingles. Companies may have negative brand association in customers' memories. This is classical conditioning. Some companies change the names to help create new associations. Philip Morris, manufacturers of cigarettes, is now Altria. ValueJet is now AirTran. If you want to know more about ValueJet, look them up. I do believe they had some crashes, lots of issues going on there, and over time they changed their name to AirTran, and suddenly a new brand was born, right? And that's to try to get away from or distance themselves from that negative connotation. So discussion question here, number 4. Use classical conditioning theory to explain this advertisement. Now, if you're looking at the PowerPoint, what we're looking at is 3 different shoes, blue, white, and yellow, and think about the classical conditioning. The shoes are similar in shape. One is an Adidas, one is a Nike, and one's a New Balance. But when you look at where the label or the logos are in the center of the shoe. One color predominates the entirety of the shoe, and then it's accented appropriately. Tough to tell apart. So you might be thinking, gosh, I wanted that blue shoe. Well, they're all blue. Which one? Adidas, Nike, or New Balance? 3 very different shoes, right? Operant conditioning. Skinner used pigeons to show that learning occurs by positively reinforcing behavior. So fixed ratio reward is the reward is given every time or every 4th time, right? The variable racial reward is reward timing varies unpredictably. That one's not very good. Subject will engage in the behavior more often if rewarded on the variable schedule, right? Oops, sorry. So I had the variable and the fixed ratio mixed up. So the variable schedule is what will get the behavior to engage in more often. So let's talk about how a deli could utilize operant conditioning to design a loyalty program under fixed ratio reward and variable ratio reward. So loyalty program, Subway, great example, one of the biggest quote-unquote delis. They had, every time you got a sandwich, you got a punch card, right? So every single time, fixed ratio reward. Variable ratio reward timing varies unpredictably, right? So how would they do it unpredictably? Maybe they just decided every 16th customer known to them got a free sandwich. Would you go more or less based off of those? Things to consider and ponder. Which reward ratio do you think would be more effective? Me personally, I like the fixed ratio because every time I go in, I get my stamp. And then after 10 stamps, I get a free sandwich. So I'm in complete control of that. Now on the flip side, if it's every 16th customer or some number that they've predetermined, that might be neat too. I don't put a lot of stock in chance. I'm probably going to go with the fixed ratio. Motivation hierarchy of needs, right? There's food, water, sleep, sex. That's the basis of the hierarchy of needs. The next hierarchy is safety, security. The next one past that is friendship, love, and belonging. After that, we've got self-esteem and respect. And then finally, self-actualization. But if you don't have a lot of food, you don't have a lot of water, sleep, and I don't necessarily think the sex is necessarily just for the enjoyment factor so much as it is in the procreation factor, right? The continuation of the species. But if you're finding yourself lacking in food, water, and sleep, it's going to be tough to come into self-actualization, right? If you're sleep deprived, you're not really worried about enlightenment. You just want a nap. So Maslow's hierarchy of needs here. Maslow suggested that people must have their basic needs met before moving on to more abstract needs, right? So it's at food, water, and sleep versus enlightenment. So marketers may identify their product with one of Maslow's needs. So Volvo and safety needs, right? One of the safest cars throughout history, one of their biggest plugs where marketing is concerned is Volvo. Now they've got the 5-star rating, and pretty much if it's a 5-star rating, it doesn't matter who makes it, right? Many brands are associated with a sense of belonging, social acceptance, and respect, right? So definitely hitting Maslow's needs. Marketers may identify products with aspiration groups. Marketers may offer an extended brand line for customers at different levels in Maslow's hierarchy. Mercedes has a lower end C model, then upward to the E, S, and finally the CL models, right? If we look at a lot of your liquor distributors, you've got your basic model, and then you've got your black label, and then your black label reserve, things like that. So the higher that goes up, the more expensive it becomes. So marketers use hierarchy for positioning. So remember our 4 Ps, or I'm sorry, the STP. So positioning is a big deal there. So distinguishing motivations. Utilitarian versus hedonic. So a suit for interviews versus an Armani suit. Both can be used for interviews, but one's a little bit more hedonistic than the other. Conformity versus individuality. May vary over lifetime or in different situations, right? Risk-seeking versus risk-averse. Risk tolerance may vary with product knowledge. Let's see, attitudes and decision-making. Attitudes and decision-making influence whether consumers will buy a brand, repeatedly purchase it, become loyal, and recommend it to others. Me personally, I'm a huge fan of Toyota and Honda automobiles. 1, I'm very familiar with wrenching on those cars. 2, you can put on hundreds of thousands of miles before the wheels fall off. Usually with very little maintenance. They run awesomely. Their fit and finish are amazing. The interiors don't degrade very easy. I recently gave my daughter a 2003 Toyota Camry with 270,000 miles on it. Seems crazy, right? But when we think about it, will the customer buy the brand? Yes, Toyota, love it. Repeatedly purchase it? Certainly. I own a Tundra, right? So Toyota Camry, then a Toyota Tundra. Become loyal? Absolutely. Those are my tops. Recommend it to others? Most certainly. Pass it on to your family and friends? Absolutely will, right? So attitudes and decision making influence the consumer. What are your attitudes? Let's look at that a little bit deeper. Attitudes are a mix of beliefs and importance. Weights, right? Beliefs. I think Sprite has caffeine. That's a belief, right? The importance. I think having caffeine is important. Newsflash, customers may differ on both importance and belief. So in this instance, I think Sprite has caffeine. That's not true. That's just a belief. Is it a fact? No. So be aware that beliefs and facts are not the same thing. Importance. I think having caffeine is important. We should probably switch it to a different drink, right? Because Sprite doesn't have it. So decision making. Decision making, with a few choices, consumers easily compare brands to make the decision. Are you going to go with the Charmin? Or are you going to go with the next best brand, right? With many choices, consumers use two stages. They have a stage one, which is where they're going to determine consideration sets, and stage two, compare brands to make a purchase decision. Okay. Stage one, non-compensatory method. Okay, so think about that for a second. Non-compensatory method. If a brand doesn't have important attributes, it is cut. Lexicographic method. Compare all brands on most important attribute, cut the brands that don't have it, move on to the next important attribute, and compare and cut, right? Think about what you would consider where cars are concerned. Personally, I think it would be awesome to drive a Ferrari. Does it have a back seat? Right? Okay, that one gets cut. So now I'm looking at a Camry. Not a Ferrari, both automobiles, but that Camry's got a back seat. I have 3 kids and 5 dogs. I need a back seat. Probably need more like a SUV, right? So, lexicographic method. Compare all brands on most important attribute and cut the brands that don't have it. Poor Ferrari. Okay, so stage 2. Compare brands in detail. Compensatory model. Cost, benefit. One excellent attribute can compensate for a poor attribute, right? So some websites aid this process by allowing users to view a side-by-side comparison of attributes. That's how I shop. If I'm on Amazon, I am comparing all the models that are offered. I'm comparing the prices, and I'm comparing the individuals that offer it. If it's Amazon Direct, I'm going to go with Amazon Direct because it's the easiest return policy should a problem arise, right? So that's a compensatory model. Cultural differences, lots of influence here. Sociocultural differences influence consumers and produce shopping patterns. Social class. Old money people seek exclusivity. Nouveaux indulge in conspicuous consumption. They want people to see that they've got it, right? So age. Young people buy furniture. As they get older, they buy diapers and minivans. Then college. And finally, healthcare. In this world, that seems kind of backwards, right? Now they're worried about healthcare in their older life cycle. They should have been focused on that the whole time. Just a public service message there for you. Discussion question number 6. How can a marketer capitalize on the baby boomer segment? This is huge because it's one of the largest segments, aside from the millennial group. That is the next largest. So the group in between, the Gen Xers, are actually the smallest group between the baby boomers and the millennials. The millennials are starting to rival in number the baby boomers, so keep that in mind. But how, in the meantime, can a marketer capitalize on the baby boomer segment? So we've got to focus on, we noticed in that last sociocultural difference that one of the last things everybody focuses on is healthcare. So how would you market your product? If you're after that baby boomer segment, I would suggest highly that you create the relevance to the health of the individual buying it, right? So 3 major phases. This is our managerial recap. 3 major phases of consumption: pre-purchase, purchase, and post-purchase, right? The criteria to purchase, the actual purchasing, and then how happy were you after the purchase. 3 major classes of purchases: B2C. Remember, we've got convenience, shopping, and specialty. B2B, business to business. Remember, B2C is business to consumer, but B2B is a straight rebuy. The modified rebuy, things have changed, different options, different features, that sort of thing. The new buy, right? As we get to the specialty for the B2C and the new buy for the B2B, remember, those are long distance type purchases. We don't make them very often. They've got a higher ticket price. We're going to spend some time thinking it over because it's an investment. There's various involvement which determines your class, right? So that's it. How do consumers think? Sensing and perceiving information that is learned and stored in memory. How to use the 5 senses. And some of the other videos that we have will talk about that. Some of the book talks about that. But look at companies and ask them, how do you focus on attracting your consumers? And if they come back with 5 senses, they're ahead of the game. Motivations help marketers understand what consumers are seeking to satisfy, right? Attitudes and decision making are subject to influence by good information and biases. Biases come often from word of mouth. Do a good job. Follow it up. Social norms define your consumers. That's the end of Chapter 2. Join us next time for Chapter 3.